3 years ago, I gave a speech after the fall of Kabul in Afghanistan. At the time, I was very angry at the waste, the extraordinary waste of lives, British lives and Afghan, of all those who had served and fought and given so much to keep that country and us safe. And I was absolutely furious about it. And this is the first time I've rewatched this speech in 3 years. Let's see what I think.
Like many veterans, this last week has been one that has seen me struggle through anger and grief and rage, the feeling of abandonment of not just a country, but the sacrifice that my friends made. I've been to funerals from Poole to Dunblane. I've watched good men go into the earth, taking with them a part of me and a part of all of us.
Yeah, well, I remember it was during the August recess actually, so we were all over the place, and I remember the days before this actually more than the writing it actually, because many of us who'd been in Afghanistan for weeks, months, years. I'd spent 4 years working in and around Afghanistan. Had spent whatever it was, the week or two before Parliament came back, trying to get Afghan friends out, those veterans, those people who'd served alongside us, the interpreters, the so-called triples, those in the 444 and 333 units, out of Afghanistan at a time when the Taliban would quite literally have killed them. In fact, some of my friends fought quite literally to the last man on an airbase in southern Afghanistan, and they were all killed. And so it was a very emotional time for a lot of us. We got some out, but we didn't get everybody out. And there was a real network of, Army veterans, Air Force veterans, working together to get them out, and there was a whole bunch of others who were helping in different ways, and it was quite something, but it was very emotional. And I remember I'd been away. I'd been staying with in-laws at the time, so instead of sort of sitting by the pool or whatever it was that we were supposed to be doing, I was spending 24/7 on the phone, trying to get people out, and having these extraordinary conversations where there was a friend of mine with his wife and kids trying to get through that crush around Kabul airport at the time, and it was awful, because I had a mate who actually, completely by chance, but a mate of mine was one of the ground commanders in Kabul airport, one of the British ground commanders in Kabul airport, and so I was in touch with him. So I was texting him, and he was passing on messages and telling me where to send them, to which gate, and to wave a yellow cloth, or yeah, exactly. And so I was coordinating it from my in-laws' place, and other people were coordinating from other places. And meanwhile, my kids were playing in the pool, and my wife was asking me to come to lunch or whatever, and the usual sort of family holiday things when you're spending it with your in-laws. And I was like, no, I can't come to lunch right now, or I can't come for a walk now. I've got trying to get these guys in, and it was really striking, the sort of contrast between our lives, and you're in touch with these friends who are, quite literally begging for their lives, quite literally appealing for their lives. And so, I'd been thinking a lot about what was going on, and I remember I wrote that speech about 4 or 5 times, and then when I stood up, I gave a different speech anyway. So it was a sort of, it was a difficult time for a lot of us.
Because I was never prouder than when I was decorated by the 82nd Airborne after the capture of Musakala. It was a huge privilege to be recognised by such an extraordinary unit in combat. To see their commander-in-chief call into question the courage of men I fought with, to claim that they ran. It's shameful. Those who have never fought for the colours they fly should be careful about criticising those who have.
I have to say I was furious. I was furious with President Biden, who had just said that the reason that the collapse had happened over the previous weeks was because the Afghans hadn't fought for their future, hadn't fought for their freedom, which is just, frankly, completely untrue. I mean, literally hundreds of thousands of Afghans died in the previous 20 years fighting in police and army units that we raised, supported, funded, equipped, all the rest of it, and alongside us. And then to turn around and say, oh, well, they weren't really there, and, it's their fault that it collapsed. I mean, first of all, it's demonstrably untrue. Mm-hmm. Secondly, it's grossly insulting to people who had quite literally given their lives to fight for not only their freedom and the freedom of their families and all the rest of it, but also to fight against those groups, those terrorist forces who had threatened us, had murdered so many in New York and Washington on 9/11, but had also tried to spread hatred and fear across the United Kingdom and other places. So I was just furious that anybody could do that, and particularly to have the US president saying it. I mean, it was just deeply insulting. I haven't watched this speech back for, I don't know what it is, 2 or 3 years, and I still think it was an absolutely disgraceful thing to say. And Biden knew better. And he had absolutely no obligation to say what he said. He knew it was wrong, or at least he should have known it was wrong, and if he didn't, that says even worse things about him. And so it was really shameful. It was really, really shameful. That's why I was so angry. I spent the best part of 4 years serving in Afghanistan in various different ways, and I had various different roles. So at one point I was helping to set up the National Security Council in Afghanistan. There was 2 of us Brits working alongside about 60, 70 Afghans right in the Afghan president's palace, helping to set up the National Security Council, and that was fascinating. And it was hard work, but it was, civil service work, if you like. It was intelligence work. It was that sort of thing. I had the great good fortune of working alongside some amazing people, some very, very brave people, who, served alongside us despite the enormous risks they faced, and very sadly, some of them were killed as we worked together. A suicide bomber got into my outer office and killed a lot of people literally just outside the door, as it were, 3-4 meters, something like that, and killed a few of my bodyguards and the people who were guarding the governor's office. So it was a difficult time, but it was important. If you think things matter, you've got to be prepared to take risk and do what you think is right. And I think trying to rebuild a country, particularly a country like that that's got such enormous human resources and some amazing people, you've got to be prepared to take the risk yourself. It was a very difficult speech to give on one level, because it was a very emotional time, but I knew what needed to be said, and I was extremely angry. And it's one of the reasons why I think politics matters, and why the game playing in politics so annoys me, is because actually the decisions we take really do change lives. I mean, here, the decision to withdraw from Afghanistan may have seemed like an easy decision, but actually tens of thousands of people died because of it. Families were abandoned. The Taliban killed various people I know, and I'm sure many thousands of people I never met and had no idea of. And it disrupted, it brought huge pain to so many people. And the other decisions we take about healthcare or housing or taxation, have similar impacts on people's lives here in the United Kingdom. And that's why for me politics isn't a game. It's not about it's not about ego. It's not about the next job on the ladder or whatever it happens to be. It's about try and do the right thing. Try and do the thing that you think will make the best and most important difference to our community. And if you get that right, it'll help people. If you get it wrong, it'll cost. But if you get it wrong for the right reasons, well, at least you followed your principles. If you get it wrong because you were playing games, frankly, you shouldn't be in public service at all.